We are not learning because we are not risking. You only learn when you make mistakes. It doesn't have to be either or. It can be and also. Then I don't want to lose my emotionality to materialism. If I'm emotionally independent, by default, I will be financially independent. It's not the reverse. But I think when it comes to decision making, we have to be allowed. Start using money to help yourself show and showcase to yourself that you can do something with it. Don't entrust money management to anyone but yourself.
So here's something fascinating about the modern Indian woman. You know, we lead companies, we build careers across continents, we manage teams, we do budgets, we negotiate. Many of us are the most financially capable people in the room. And yet, when it comes to, say, certain decisions, property perhaps, inheritance, family wealth, even maybe sometimes wedding expenses, suddenly we pause, we defer, we check, we wait, not for the market, no, but for approval. And that approval almost always comes from the same place. A father, an older brother, an uncle who's, I got it, don't worry, I'll handle it, those kind of things. So here's the paradox. According to recent studies in India, women are increasingly getting educated. They are increasingly earning more and increasingly influential in household spending decisions. And yet, when it comes to wealth and ownership and long-term financial authority, the numbers tell a very different story. Only a small percentage of women in India independently control family assets or investments even. Not because they can't, okay, but because the system that they've inherited quietly tells them they don't need to. And that system, it has a name. Inherited patriarchy. It's not loud, not aggressive, not even intentional. And often it's loving, it's protective, it is well-meaning. It sounds, like I said earlier, don't worry, we'll handle it. We'll handle it. Well, today on Project W, Women, Wealth, Wisdom, we are unpacking the emotional and the psychological roots of that dynamic. We're putting into context the manifestation of patriarchy in modern India. Not to rebel against it, okay? Let me just say that at the get-go, but to understand it and to learn how to navigate it intelligently. Because claiming your financial voice doesn't require conflict. It requires awareness, first and foremost, and importantly, the right tools. Well, I'm your host, Erica, and joining me today is someone who has spent, decades helping people understand the emotional architecture of relationships, of identity, and importantly, money power. Clinical psychologist and psychotherapist, and author of For the Thinking Woman. Varkha Chulani joins us on Project W. Welcome to the show.
Such a pleasure. Thank you. And I'm honored to be a part of it. Thank you, Erica.
So I'd love to start from the very top. We always start with this origin story. Very interesting to understand from your perspective what drew you into the field of psychology. What was that point in your early part of your life where you thought, this is what I'm really interested in, getting into people's minds and understanding them better?
So I was inspired actually in grade 11 and 12 when I was in SNDT Juhu with a teacher who was really good at what she did. And I maybe just got inspired by her, the way she taught the subject. But if I'd be honest, it was a fluke because in my BA at Mithaibai College, because from SNDT I moved to Mithaibai because I wanted to do psychology. But I realized it was a very tough subject. There was too much of studying, and I was one of those who felt like, oh God, I cannot study. So I had gone on a holiday and left my form with a friend, and told her, just tick sociology, here are my fees. And she didn't listen to me. And she just ticked the subject which she was taking. And it just happened. And from there, it just went on. So sometimes I just tell people, sometimes chance just happens. And then you just take those chances and you just go along. So there was no like real turning point or any depth in why I wanted to study human behavior. It just happened.
The universe conspired
Yeah.
to make things happen.
Correct? So sometimes maybe we should not plan too much and just let things roll.
Absolutely. Go with the flow. Be zen about life.
Yeah.
So when women come to you in particular, for therapy, what patterns about family power dynamics most often surface?
I think unfortunately, the social conditioning is such that families usually believe that women are the weaker sex and women are, or their girl children, have to be protected and have to be taken care of. And therefore, control often becomes the theme for these girls. They are not allowed. Okay, they have to seek permission. They have to ask. They have to constantly justify, constantly plea, and take decisions only when there is a validation and acceptance and endorsement from the families that they are reared in and in which they grow up. So I think a lot of it has to do with not an inheritance as much as a learning. And therefore, when we learn these patterns of behavior as young children, that, our identity is as daughters of our fathers, sisters of our brothers, okay? A self-identity or a self-realization that we are entities in our own right doesn't get laid, so to speak. Now, if you don't question those ideologies and you just continue to subscribe to and believe the same thing, but naturally it's going to be that you're just going to continue the entire pattern and maybe pass it down to your daughters as well. So the trend just continues and it is not more inherited, it is learned. And therefore, as a therapist, I believe since it's learned, it can be unlearned.
Right.
And that's exactly what we try and do in therapy. We understand what are the beliefs because no one's born with beliefs. You are born with dispositions and predispositions to something, okay? But then you learn and you are an active participant in the process of the conditioning. Now, since you're active, you can also become unactive in breaking the beliefs and the ideologies that you and I have been, kind of endorsed with and constantly subjected to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the cultural milieu in Indian homes, and I'll speak for India because most of my work is here, is about learning that this is the way to live, not having the permission to question those ways
Yeah.
to live. We're not a very encouraging society where we do not tell our children that they have a right to go against the parent. We've been taught,
Absolutely not. Yes,
we've been
correct.
taught that respect is acceptance. Okay, obedience. Okay, means that you are following the line and you are going to agree to a social milieu which has been set up for you. You don't know better.
And I'm guilty of that. Bringing up my son, I've heard myself say this so often: do not question. Do as I say.
Yeah.
You will have to take my permission
Right.
until you're a certain age. And then I'm thinking back, what has age got to do with it? It's, biologically, you could be 70, but you're
Correct.
still 18.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I'm saying? But let's talk about that permission culture bit.
Yeah.
Do you still find, the women who come to you for therapy, are they still caught up in the permission culture of things?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Nothing's changed. We may look very fancy, wear beautiful clothes, smoke, drink, travel, whatever. But I think when it comes to decision making, we have to be allowed. We have to seek. We have to get validation and endorsement from people. So yes, permission culture hasn't vanished at all. And it's unfortunate, but that's the truth of India. That's the truth of all segments of society. It is not today that, okay, you come from a different, tier of tier 2 towns, and then because you come from great cities like Bombay, Delhi, Calcutta, you're necessarily going to be, far more evolved. Unfortunately, we are as restricted, we are as kind of yoked in our ideologies.
Right.
And until that doesn't change, I believe that we are going to continue the trend and constantly be dependent. So dependency is encouraged.
Right.
Right. And as you said, you tell your son that don't question. And I've always told my daughter that please question. Your parents are not gods or goddesses. So if you think that we are talking nonsense, please call us out. So maybe that kind of milieu needs to come into homes
Yeah,
where the parents are not celebrated as the know-alls and the be-alls of everything.
Yeah.
We have to respect that the child who grows has a brain of his or hers, has an ability. And I keep asking people, why do you believe that your child will want to get into trouble? Why do you come with that faulty assumption
Yes.
that your child is going to waste money, is going to squander it, is going to throw it away? Why do you not believe that he or she will be sensible? If you give them pocket money, you empower them. You empower them to learn what is money, how to enable themselves to make the best of it, and to learn budgeting. So, another facet I think is that we don't trust because we don't trust ourselves of having done a good job as parents to empower our girls to be mathematically sound.
Right.
Right? And these are cultural ideologies. So I project my anxiety. I don't believe that I have done a good enough job to teach my children about the value and the ability to manage money. How will then she be empowered to be able to take her decision? She will obviously want constant reassurance. Mom or dad, am I doing this right? Should I buy this? Should I not buy this? But if I tell her, here's 10,000, now you figure what you want to spend it is your problem. But I'm not giving you a rupee more. Take those 30 days and figure it out, how you want to do it. That's when the child begins to think that, how do I manage? Should I take that 500 rupees Starbucks coffee or wait for that 500 and keep it aside? Because when my friends go out, I will have that 500 to go out with them.
Yeah.
Right. So that becomes a kind of a reward assessment that the child begins to make.
Right.
Where to spend, where not to spend, how much to spend, how little to spend,
Yeah.
what's important, what's not.
Right.
And then in that 10,000, if she wants to be savvy, whether she wants to save maybe 10 or 15% of that, so that parallelly she's building her own corpus.
Right. Right. These things should be taught in schools.
These things should be
Especially
taught at
with-
home.
with our girls at home as
Yeah,
well. I
yeah.
think very important to have these tools and for us to understand it. And it will obviously, help us greatly if this was inculcated in schools, just the basics
Yeah.
for our girls.
Yeah.
Ashta, say you're challenging your professional integrity. Can you share an anecdote or a story about patriarchy? Someone who came to your practice with this, and how did you help them navigate it?
So I think patriarchy exists because more often than not, women are women's worst enemies. You see the difference in the way a mother brings up her son versus the way she brings up her daughter. So we encourage patriarchy. As I repeat, it's not inherited,
But we've learned it.
and we can unlearn
And
it.
we're regurgitating that. But nobody has
Absolutely.
given us the tools to unlearn it. And therefore, this conversation.
Yes. And the unlearning happens when you begin to question and ask yourself two questions.
Yeah.
What is the worst that will happen if I take a monetary decision, for example? I will lose some money, right? I'm not dying because of it. And what's the next worst thing? I may go wrong. Those are the only two things that can really happen. Because at the end of the day, if I view that money is a tool, it's an enabler which will give me the life that I want. In itself, it has no value. It helps me buy luxury. It helps me live a more comfortable life. It helps me accumulate knowledge if I want to buy a book, that is, or to travel or to spend.
It's also very intrinsically tied into the notion of power,
Yes, yes.
which is then where patriarchy comes into our system.
Correct. So I think basically empowering a girl, who comes to the clinic is teaching her or a woman for that matter that, you have a right to make mistakes and you have a right to be wrong and you have a right to first believe that, you're not a brainless twit. You have a mind which unfortunately maybe you've not learned how to use.
That's right.
Then what happens in our growing years, we've always segmented that math is for the boys and the rest of the subjects is for the girls. So the STEM, science, math, technology, is all male dominated arenas, and the liberal art and the beautiful commercial art is for the women. So straight away, you have created in the mind of a girl that she has something called collateral learning. Not only has she not learned the subject because she's told that she doesn't have the capacity to learn it, but she's also learned an attitude that, oh God, it's so terrifying, right? And then we break that ideology that nothing is rocket science. If A can do it, so can you. So you empower by breaking belief systems
Yeah.
which the child or the woman has grown up with, and not breaking it for breaking its sake. We believe that you only break beliefs which you think do not allow you to live the life that you want to live, right? In itself, there's nothing right or wrong. If you're happy with the patriarchy, please continue. If you want to be a dependent personality, please continue. Obviously, the very fact you come into a therapist's office means you're struggling.
Yeah.
You're struggling with, maybe resentment towards how you're being controlled and how you're being told what to do or what not to do.
Right.
Yeah. You're struggling with anxiety and self-doubt because you've never been empowered as a younger person that, you know what, make that mistake. What's the worst that'll happen? You'll waste some money. You've never been. So to start self-trusting and taking little bit of risk where we teach that, ask yourself, what is the worst that'll happen? And then when you realize you're not killing anyone and you're not dying, nothing is really that fearful.
Yeah. Look at the worst case scenario and see if you can, and see how you can best handle that.
Correct.
And
And the
everything
worst
else
case
becomes-
scenarios are not that terrible.
Yeah.
It's just making few errors, which is part of being human,
Yeah.
and maybe expending extra money on something, but you learn from experience.
Right.
So use those mistakes as learning experiences. Use the fact that you may have been diddled out of some extra spend, but then how do you become more cautious? In fact, we believe we are not learning because we are not risking. We are not learning because we are not experiencing. How do you learn? You only learn when you make mistakes.
Right.
What not to do.
Let's come to the part of obedience in Indian families. So, does it mean that you love less if you're disobedient?
Yes, unfortunately, that's the way it's emotionally blackmailed to the women
So,
particularly.
how do we navigate that now?
Again, I think we have to question the philosophy of control as care and gratitude as slavery. I'm very grateful to my father for what he was able to do for me, give me the platform in terms of allow me. Now look at my own words. Allow me
Yes.
to pursue my therapy studies in the US. Give me, now look at my words, my own words as a therapist. Forget about anyone else. Okay?
So, you have to check yourself.
Yeah, because I sometimes wonder, like, what am I thinking? Okay.
What am I saying?
What am I saying? Yeah. Give me the clinic, because he's a colon and rectal surgeon. Give me the clinic to start my practice. Right. Now, I have to say that, you know what? He gave it to me and I'm ever so grateful, but I don't have to be enslaved that just because now he's given me this platform, but I have to keep fighting that, not because I'm a rebel, because I believe that that fight will empower me to, at the end of the day, what is the goal? I believe the goal of life is to be self-reliant. And money becomes a tool for self-reliance.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So if I have the confidence of saying that, you know what, this kind of obedience is only going to come in my way, then how am I going to learn self-reliance?
Right.
Today, our parents may die, our husbands may die, nobody may want us. But the goal of a human being is how can she want herself? How does she trust herself to be able to exist? Yes, of course, with some dissatisfactions and disappointments that the loved ones that she had are not available to her, either because they don't want her anymore or they're angry with her, or they choose to want her only in conditionality, that is when she does the right thing according to them. I want the woman to stand on her own feet and say, you know what, I'm happy to be a part of your life as long as I am allowed to be my own person.
Right. So, financial independence and emotional independence
Is inversely related.
Okay.
If I'm emotionally independent, by default, I will be financially independent. It's not the reverse.
Right.
Emotionally, I have to feel that I matter, that I have a brain which I can use, that I have my own desires and I'm not going to be apologetic about them. And I have no reason to constantly justify my asks.
Or my existence.
Correct. Right? Now, if I believe that my existence is important to me, by default, I will spend that money on myself. I will manage it much better. I will give it its due and possibly not squander it. I will look after it because it is enabling me for my desires, my needs, my wants, my preferences without requiring permission. So, a confident me automatically handles money better.
Right.
And how does the confidence come? It comes only from one belief. I matter and I can do my own thing.
Now, how will you flip this, and present it to the men?
Oh, that's another story. But well, I think
Maybe another podcast. But
yeah. I think because the man isn't or hasn't rather been conditioned that the woman is an entity and has an identity of her own.
right.
So we, especially the mothers who have sons, have to teach those boys that, look, she's not your property. You don't own her. She's not something that belongs to you. That you two are coming together in a communion, in a relationship as much as possible as equals. Of course, we will never be equal because biologically we are different, but as equals in having the rights to want, having the rights to deserve, having the rights to go out and get whatever it is that both of you as individuals seek.
Right.
So I think a lot of work has to be done with the Indian man today.
Right. So when you get, a woman coming to you for help, do you also include the partner, the husband, the male extensions of the family, especially when it has to do with financial situations and financial dynamics?
Oh yes, sometimes we ask, but not necessarily that they come. I suggest in marital issues, particularly around finance or anything for that matter, for the other partner to join in, but not necessarily that they do. I do family sessions
Okay.
where we do negotiations and mediation to understand what is basically an object called money. Because I believe today it's becoming a big factor in relationship breakdown. It's leading to family disputes, which I have never seen of this kind before. And I think we have to get a ecosystem around it to say it cannot be the be all and end all of a person's life and existence. At the end of the day, you're not taking to heaven, right?
Correct.
And what are you going to do with it? So yes, family therapy becomes a very important part, especially when there is inheritance, when there are, disputes to be resolved, when there are, partnerships to be sorted. Definitely. And I do believe that is a trend that people are seeking, that they actually seek us out as professionals to come in as family therapists to be able to help their family offices.
Which is a good sign.
Very good sign, yes.
Let's bring it to the younger generations. Do you see any shift in the way they are looking at money and the way they're handling money and the way they treat their partners differently, the woman versus the man?
So I think there's a dissonance and a confusion here. A lot of young kids, like my daughter is 25, will want to split the bill right to the T. So somewhere we are losing a little bit of a grace in terms of everything's being so like exact down to the last penny.
But isn't that a good thing, Varka? I mean, at the end of the day,
As long as
on the one side, you're saying, they have to be equal and therefore let them split the bill equally.
Yeah, but then there are certain things like occasions, gifts, etc. Like tomorrow, if I earn a little more, say COVID, my work was doing very well, my husband's was not. It was not even a thought to me that, who's paying for everything? It doesn't matter. And relationships thrive on that you give and take at different phases of your life.
Right.
Otherwise, how are you going to support each other? If everything is down the middle of the line, then it's a transaction. And relationships better not be only transactions. Where's the emotionality? Where is love? Where is consideration? Where is compassion? I would want that illnesses happen disadvantages happen,
Life
things go.
happens.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Okay, so you can't be so money-minded. And I think that's where we've gone to the other extreme. So maybe our mothers were on one extreme, constant dependent. Now they've gone to complete independence. So I would like an interdependence. And that's what we talk about relationships. Healthy relationships are not one which is independent.
Right.
That's why relationships today are becoming so unhealthy because everything is about independence, right? A healthy relationship is not one which is dependent. At least, let me speak for my mother. Fully dependent on my father, horrible, I hate it. Wouldn't take a step without, checking in with him. It's neither independence nor dependence. A healthy relationship is one of interdependence.
What do you tell your daughter then when she wants to split it right down to the last?
Don't do that. There are times when, it in life, nothing is equal. Even in a partnership of a company, you will always find someone more invested. Even in a husband-wife relationship, you will find someone more invested. Even in children taking care of their parents, you will find some children doing far more. You cannot measure that. You cannot measure emotional investment. That is your intrinsic nature.
Right.
You have to listen to your intrinsic nature. Don't try and become somebody which you're not and become so practical. In your practicality, you are going to fail. Definitely.
Yeah.
Flexibility
Yeah.
to adapt and accommodate and ask, what is the situation at hand right now in front of me? Who cares about those 1, 2, 3, 4 extra lakhs of rupees? It doesn't matter. What matters more right now is the health of the relationship, the emotional, nurturance of what we want to build together. So I think a large part of the message I would want to give, especially young people who are cohabiting, they're not necessarily married, but they live together, etc., is that keep a bigger vision, have a vision of togetherness ahead of you. Then you will be able to navigate, when to let go, when not to let go,
Yeah.
when to pull back, when to completely give in.
Yeah.
I think that wisdom needs to come.
Right. Well, speaking of wisdom, and let's talk about, long term, when it comes to, say, property matters and so on and so forth. Have there been any instances where, women, especially who come to you for help, have found themselves in really challenging positions, with respect to, say, ownership and property matters? And how have you dealt with that?
So I think most women, first of all, feel very ashamed of even asking for their rights.
Right. That's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even
There's a lot of
amongst-
guilt.
A lot of guilt. And even to have the conversations
Yeah.
with somebody close, it's like, I can't even admit to somebody that I'm having a family issue about, property.
Again, I think it comes from the philosophy of being self-sacrificing. As girls, we've always told to give up and deprive. So even if you see, I know I'm being very idiotic, but even if you see today, the healthier piece of meat is given to the boy than to the girl. The extra glass of milk is given to the boy than to the girl. Why will it not permeate into different facets? That, what? Are you really going to be asking your brother to move out of this family home and buy you out? It's happened. It's happening. And my question is, the Indian Supreme Court did pass a law some years ago, many years ago actually, where women have equal inheritance right. But it's caused so much of anguish because the philosophy was, because the man stays with the parents and looks after their parents, and money has been spent on the girl's marriage and maybe the dowry, so to speak, or the stridhan or whatever it's called, has been already imparted, she does not have any rights to what is her father's. And what may be happening today, a lot of parents, and particularly people who are making wills, are realizing that this is causing a huge issue, especially where there's brother-sister. If there's sister-sister, it doesn't matter as much. And I'll tell you why. Because the son continues to stay in the parental home more often than not, okay, and takes care of the parents. The daughter marries, of course, and goes to her family home. 20 years pass, 30 years pass, then there comes a point when the parents begin to age, fall ill, and eventually pass away. Parents are realizing that if they don't make a proper will and a proper, agenda of this goes to that or that goes to this, they are going to set their children up for misery and for a lot of strife.
Yeah.
So then what people are doing is that saying, okay, since my son lives with me, and if the value of the flat, for example, is 10 crores, I'm just throwing a number, then all the other assets, which are liquid assets of the same amount or maybe little here or there, will go to my daughter so that there is no strife. And I think it's wise to do that because these are illiquid assets. It's very difficult to just sell a home and then divide. Very difficult. A person may not have the liquidity to buy out the sister's share.
Right.
So I think it's prudent, and I don't know why. And I think this is again an outlook where us educating our parents to do this is very important so that we preserve relationships. Today, brothers are not talking to sisters. Today, siblings are not looking at each other. Okay, today cousins and whoever the hell are fighting about anything. What's the
Ancestral
point?
properties, yes. We hear that story, every time I turn around and have a conversation with somebody else, it is like, oh my God, so-and-so person's involved in this conflict and this, inheritance issue when it comes to large industrial families as well.
Yes.
We see it in the public sphere being fought, it's just cruel and can it be avoided? How do we go about, fixing that?
I think the attitude towards money. I think if we just see it as a tool and as an enabler and we stop worshipping it and we stop having such a obsession with it and we see it just as a facet, right? If tomorrow I need to go to a doctor and he checks me and he says, you have this, why can we not see money in the same way?
I don't know why. Why, Barkha? Please tell me. It's been built into us. So we've attached this kind of notion to money. The more
Because
you
our
have, the
self-worth is
better
dependent on it.
Yes, correct.
We celebrate the rich and look down on the poor as if the rich really did anything so significant. Most of them possibly inherited. Some got lucky. Some did have ability and were very savvy to be able to make something of themselves. And some did very wrong. They cheated, they were corrupt. We don't take into consideration all of that, right? We just get awestruck. Now, until that mindset of what is this man? I mean, is he only defined by money? Then you will never change the attitude towards it.
So from a woman's perspective, what are the tools that she needs to use to change mindsets about money? And then how does she use it to navigate her agency within the family and the larger sphere?
So I'll give you a personal example. I always taught my daughter, don't be scared of money. Okay? In fact, there is a saying in gambling, scared money never wins. I said, please do not be scared of it. It is a tool to give you what you want. So if you want to go to Canada and study, that's what it's going to be used for. So take away the emotionality around it. The minute you and I become emotional about something.
And also the false notion of power.
Correct.
Yeah.
And do not equate that just because you have some thousands of crores or whatever you have, you're any better than someone who doesn't have it. So break your identity from your wealth. It is not the definition of who you are. Because you have it, of course, it gives you plenty of advantages. And because you don't have it, it gives you disadvantages. And that's where it stops. You cannot be seeing yourself as better or worse because you have some or you don't have some.
Right.
So these are trainings from the crib actually.
Okay.
These are value systems.
How do you use this to negotiate a better salary at work?
By first of all not being scared of asking. And I love this book which I was very young when I read, and it is called, it's still available, Think and Grow Rich. It's Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And he said, I bargained with life for a penny until I counted my scanty score. For life is a just employer. He gives you what you ask. But once you set the wages, you must bear the task. So you have to know that if today you have a skill, whatever that skill is, how much will people pay you for it?
Yeah.
So you define your value. You can either sell yourself for a penny, as he said, but once you set the wages. So if I ask that I'm a 10,000 rupee therapist, a 45-minute session will call you 10,000, will cost you 10,000. I better see that that person who pays it finds value to pay me that kind of money.
Yep.
That means my work ethic, my ability, my knowledge, my investment in the client, not being distracted, not talking irrelevant nonsense. All those will determine how I feel that I have a right to ask for this. So your own ability will decide what you want. If you think you're also a faffer, as in we are also not up to the mark and we don't have ability, how can we ask for a pound of flesh? And you know what I'm finding today, and especially in India, people want money without effort. Everyone wants to be rich.
Is that a generational thing, or is it just?
It is a generational thing in
'cause
the last
market
10
ethics have
years.
changed because they have no idea about cryptocurrency. They have no. It's all about whatever's happening in the ether. So
An ethos where they don't have to use their brains. They don't have to sweat the way you and I are sweating.
okay, I have to agree with you there because we come from analog to AI. So I've run the gamut.
Yeah.
I know how things work, like literally.
Yeah.
So with the young generation, what is their relationship with money? So there's too much of emphasis on it. It's like more like get rich quick.
Yeah.
And
the
how are the
second.
girls? How are the girls handling money?
Everyone likes a good life. I like it, you like it, I'm sure. Okay. But where do you draw the boundary and where do you draw the line? And that has become fuzzier and fuzzier and fuzzier with the young girls of today. Everybody wants to look great. They go to parlors to get their hair done. For what? For a selfie. They go to makeup. For what? For selfies and Instagram likes. So it's an Insta generation.
Yeah, but there's a whole industry built around that.
Yeah.
So that's
And
a
it's
whole
doing
different
damage to us.
conversation. Yes, it is.
And it's therefore will definitely dive straight into money, no?
yes,
If I'm instant gratification and I don't have the patience and the tolerance, I will swipe my credit card. Okay. I will steal if I have to. I will do whatever it takes to give me that instant gratification. I can't wait for 10 years to buy an LV bag. I want it pronto.
yeah. I'll rent it out, but I want it now.
Exactly. So I think you made a very good point. Rent it out. Why do I have to wear brands? And brands are very expensive because my entire self-worth is coming from the brand. So if I don't own an LV or a Gucci or whatever it is, I feel smaller. Now that is a mindset. Even if I have a mental health day off, if that mindset is not corrected, how am I going to make any difference to my mental health?
Yeah.
So comparison, competition, the two biggest enemies to mental health.
We're going to bring this conversation down a little bit and talk about relationships and marriage.
Yep.
And where some women find themselves in situations where they find it awkward or challenging to even start that conversation about money with their other half, with their partner. They don't want to be confrontational. How can we navigate that? What are the tools that they could use to start these conversations and, without
Yeah. So I think
another world war?
I think this comes in premarital work.
Right.
If I could, suggest that is what we need to talk about rather than which dinner you like and what movie you like and all these inane things. It is important that before we start cohabiting or before we marry, what are the conversations? Because I'll tell you, a lot of money values differ from culture to culture and from families. Now, if I am with a husband or with a partner whose idea of money is it's frivolous, we can get it whenever we want, he or she will borrow. For what? For lifestyle. Now, I am a very dedicated worker. I am so intense about it has to be on the correct way. I cannot be corrupt, etc., etc. I'm not going to be able to get along with this partner because our money values are on the North and South Pole.
Yeah. Very important you said that because money values, we need to find, a balance between partners. It's equally important.
We need to find that we are aligned, not a balance.
And we discover it sometimes, unfortunately, much later into the marriage where one person is ambitious, one person's not, for example.
Yeah.
And one person uses money as a power to subjugate and
correct.
So
and again, ambition does not only mean wealth creation, no? There could be ambition where I aspire to say create, like how you're creating this podcast is an ambition, right? It does not necessarily commensurate with how much money you will earn from it, which I think again we've forgotten.
Yeah.
That satisfaction, intrinsic achievement for achievement's sake. We are not understanding that.
Yeah.
So between partners, I think we have to be unapologetic about stating what we think about it, how we want to earn it, how we want to spend it, what we would do, what we would never do. Okay. What are our ethics around it? Because if I have a partner as a cheat and I'm honest, my marriage is in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay. How much will you swallow? How much will you accept the difference? How much will you keep quiet? It will show its neck somewhere or the other. It will. So we don't I think we have to be unafraid to talk. And talking and conversing does not mean fighting. So another facet I find in Indian families is communication is zipped. We feel, oh, that if I ask or talk about something so intricate like money, I'm going to be judged, I'm going to be thought of as greedy, as wanting,
Right.
etc. Right. And I tell that even sometimes to my parents that just because I'm telling you that think how much taxes you're paying, I'm not telling you because I want the money. I'm telling you be prudent. But I'm afraid to say it
Okay.
because I don't want to be misconstrued. So there is attitude around how will I looked out as? Will I be looked upon as a greedy daughter? Will I be looked upon as a materialistic daughter? Or will they see me for what I am? Which is what? You're 83 years old. Be prudent. Be
prudent.
sensible. Plan your taxes better. Not because I want it. But I know how hard you worked. You're not a corrupt man. You're not unethical. What are you distributing it? Why are you not thinking?
Yeah.
But I will not say it as often as I would like to because I'm worried about the judgment.
Yeah. So, how does a woman start a conversation? Someone who is, well into the marriage, say 10, 15 years, 20 years even, and she has not been able to sort of break that barrier when it comes to money talk with her husband for fear of, say, confrontation, or for fear of things going out of hand, or like you said, being accused of things that she's not.
Yeah.
How does she start that conversation?
So maybe what one good thing COVID did for us is that it showed us the fragility of life. So the conversation has always to be around the fact that today, if anything happens to us, it is not you, to us. I think both of us should know what and where each other's finances are. In fact, we, as in me and my husband, have gone to the extent that Tarika knows exactly how much we owe us, if we owe anybody, all the passwords, everything.
Okay.
And everybody was shocked
Okay.
that she's already up. And this didn't happen now. She's 25 now, about 4-5 years ago. Because we just felt that one, there's no, what are we trying to hide?
Yeah.
People said, you'll spoil her, she'll know, then she will not want to work. I said, no. I think the outlook is to let her know in case we travel, any plane crash, anything can happen. It is empowering for the child to be aware so that she gets her due and nobody diddles her.
Right.
So I think conversations can begin with a commonality that we are doing this together. We need to protect whatever it is. I think we have to entrust each other with confidence and the trust
Yeah.
that this is not being done with any misconception or misperception or wanting,
Misplaced,
a
agree.
misplaced motive, a misplaced motive. So let's sit together. So I think the emphasis has to be togetherness for self-protection.
That is good. Togetherness
For self-protection.
protection.
Because I've had people whose parents suddenly, unfortunately, passed away. And then you had some random aunt, uncle, friend coming to their children and saying, your father took this from me, your father took that from me, you owe me this much, you owe me that much. And the children had no clue. Now, whether it was real or unreal, I don't know. Or whether it was just a shot in the dark someone was taking. I think everyone needs to know.
Yeah.
I think knowledge is power. Okay?
Yep.
And there is no shame in knowing. And you have to be little more thick skin, not worry about how you're going to be perceived, since you know and your conscience knows that it is from self-protection.
Right. Well,
Once-
everything comes from a place of love. If you place it that way, if you put it that way,
Of
or
course.
caring, love, and
Yeah,
therefore-
love, caring,
So it's one of-
protection, security, not being kind of cheated or, taken for a ride. And because the world has unfortunately become like that, I think any sensible partner will not feel threatened.
Okay.
Why would a person feel threatened to share something with an so-called equal. So I repeat that, so-called equal. Unless a man thinks that the woman is an unequal, then obviously he will attribute motives to it.
Yeah. So, when can daughters bring in these conversations earlier? When should they start? When should they start talking about these things? And
It's a very sensitive topic. There is no one size fits all. So I really don't have an answer
God.
because
Okay.
it's so personal.
Yeah.
My only thought is that if you are sensible, if you are sensitized to what is happening at a particular time in the family's life,
Yeah.
maybe it's better you don't talk and wait and trust and believe. And if you feel that no, things are really going off, and if you don't now open your mouth, you may be shortchanged, then maybe it's better you talk.
Right.
So it's going to be a very you have to perceive, but perceive correctly, not misperceive.
Right. But that's tricky. I mean, that's tricky
It's
to
very tricky.
navigate.
Yeah,
So many things.
It's as I said, it's a very situational thing.
It is situational. So should they take professional help at that point in time?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where I think parents need to come into the picture much earlier. Hello, we are all going to die sooner or later. Let's not be so afraid of accepting our mortality.
Yeah.
And do the right things before.
Yeah, and there are professions out there, so please go ahead and get the help, get the
Get
expert advice.
Get your paperwork in order.
Yes. Okay.
So if you don't have your paperwork in watertight ways, you will be strung along. And parents need to know that and understand that so that you don't trouble your children.
Yeah.
So I keep telling my husband, I don't want trouble, not for me, for my child. So for preventing her trouble, we better get our act together
Correct.
and put
Yeah.
everything as systematically and structuredly and properly and professionally as possible.
Right.
So that if she literally has to open one Word document, everything is there. Nobody will cheat her, nobody will shortchange her, and she will know exactly what she will have with her and what she needs to do to
Yeah.
get it.
Access to it as well.
Yeah.
Yep. Very important.
So passwords, very important.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Name matching in your Aadhaar, PAN, whatever, very important. All your bank documents having nominees, very important. Your share and demat accounts with nominees, very important.
Yeah.
Very, very important.
Yep.
And we never give cognizance to that. We're so busy partying and living life that the basic things are not
Yeah.
in order.
Yeah. This is like, oh God, I got to do that again.
yeah.
But yes.
Yeah.
What is the one belief about daughters that needs rewriting in Indian families today? The one belief about daughters.
I think the gender gap will only close if we see them as people in their own right. As we see them as humans like any other, we do not segregate on the basis of biology. We equip them and empower them and believe that they have as much, if not sometimes better, ability to think. I think if every parent who had a girl child thought like that, I think we would have lesser and lesser, demarcated, divisive roles that still continue to exist in
Thanks
Indian
to- yeah.
culture.
Yeah. Gender disparity is,
Yeah.
is quite huge.
Is, yeah.
And what should parents teach girls about money?
That it is an enabler. It's a tool that will give you a life that you want. Don't be afraid of it. Don't feel shy about it either. Create something for which people will pay you a fee. Have an ability to earn it. Realize that wealth is a long-term build and does not happen overnight. In fact, there is a saying, right? The quicker you rise and the faster you rise, the harder you fall.
That's right.
Okay. Easy money is easy. So easy come, easy go. If you work honestly for it, it will not go away as quickly because you will spend it differently. A professional would treat his or her money very differently as a businessman.
Yeah.
And you have to teach your girl that even though you may be a businesswoman where you are trading or you are, buying and selling or whatever you are doing, okay, let's be very objective about that. And let's not emotionally color your whole life around that. I think those few value teachings, I think, would be enough for at least the girl to start the process.
Yeah.
And of course, to break this myth that girls are dumb in math and only boys can do it.
You know, is it ever too late to change, or can you bring about change at any stage of your life?
I believe you can teach an old dog new tricks.
Oh, you
Anytime.
do?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Woof, woof to that.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Otherwise, as therapists, we'd have to go and close shop because. So I was very impressed. I had an 84-year-old lady
Okay.
who came for 10 sessions. She said, Varkha, there's nothing wrong with me and I know I'm going to die, but I want to live a better life. So can you help me?
Wow. Okay, so are you ready for our rapid fire?
Sure.
Okay, here we go. Rewrite the rules, Varka. What's your first instinct? One sentence Indian daughters hear too often.
You can't do it. You won't know it.
One belief about daughters and money that must disappear.
They are as capable as any.
Property discussions at home should start at what age?
As soon as possible.
Love and financial independence. Compatible?
Extremely. Provided you have the same money values.
Okay. One habit every daughter should build by 30.
Teach her budgeting and ask her to go run so that by 30, she will hopefully have a good corpus of her own.
Complete the sentence. Power for women begins with.
Self-reliance.
And it's time for our actionable task list. We call it the Power Purse Moves. So if you can give us 3 simple to-do things which will address inheritance of patriarchy and how we can navigate that, how we can...
Start managing your own accounts. Keep the money that you earn in your bank. Look at it. Think about it. Go to wealth managers or whoever you trust. Go online. Everything is free. Put your mind to managing your own money. It is very important for you to not be afraid of it and to believe that you can equip yourself with the skills at least to take care of it. So don't entrust money management to anyone but yourself.
Okay.
And if you want, you can manage your husband's also.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
And the third one?
I mean, go to your father. And why I say father? Because I expect you to do it when you're 12, 13, 14. Tell him that you want a certain corpus, which he can afford to lose, and start building something of your own. Either trade it on the stock market or build a product or sell a service for which you will need initial capital. So go take that capital from him unapologetically, sell him a business plan if you need to, and actually start using money to help yourself show and showcase to yourself that you can do something with it.
Fantastic. We've had such a great conversation, some fiery stuff. Thank you so much for joining us on Project W. And,
Always a pleasure. And thank you, Erica. I feel honored. I hope this discussion can really empower people to hear that, you know what, at the end of the day, money is a tool.
Yep.
I don't want to weaponize it, but I also don't want to be so terribly afraid of it.
So let me leave you with one thought. Patriarchy doesn't survive because men are powerful. It survives because, well, daughters are, shall we say, brought up well. We're taught to wait our turn, to be polite, to not ask too many questions. And somewhere along the way, we started confusing good manners, shall we say, with financial silence. So here's the thing. There's an update for you. And I should start by saying respect does not require surrender. Love does not require financial dependence. And tradition should never require you to mute your intelligence. It's as simple as that. So before you jump to, say, your next meeting, I know you're busy, your school pickup or your yoga class or your dinner plans, we have 3 quick things. Firstly, please share this episode. Please share it around. Send it to one woman in your life. Could be the friend or sister or colleague or cousin who you know is brilliant at everything, but still feels she needs permission when money is involved. So please share it around. And trust me, she's going to thank you for it. And second, please tell us your story. We'd love to hear it. Your inheritance story, your first big financial decision, and perhaps the moment you said, actually, I'll handle this. Or even the question you've been too polite to ask. Please ask those questions. Share it with us. Send it to us. We read every single message, and many of your stories, like I've been saying, will shape future Project W episodes. So we'd love to hear from you. And then, of course, thirdly, please tell us what we should be unpacking in the next coming episodes. Could be marriage and financial transparency, perhaps, or navigating family wealth structures. We know how tricky that can be, or investing when you finally start prioritizing yourself. If it's on your mind, it definitely belongs in this conversation. And that's it. You can find us on social, of course. Do check us out on Insta at Project W Pod. That's Project W Pod, and YouTube at Project W. And if you're listening and thinking, hey, I want to be in rooms where women actually talk about stuff like this, talk about money matters like this, please stay close, because Project W is no longer just a podcast. It is actually becoming a community. It's a community of women who are rewriting the rules of wealth here in India and beyond. Well, this is Project W, Women, Wealth, Wisdom. I'm Erica. And remember, good daughters follow rules. Yes, they do. Powerful women rewrite them. See you in the next conversation.